Thank you. Good morning.
We often feel we have a quorum without you.
Good morning, everybody. This meeting of the California High-Speed Rail Authority will come to order. Let me start by apologizing for our late start this morning. We are waiting for our appointing authorities to fill out the board. We have 3 vacancies, and so sometimes it makes the quorum a little bit challenging. But anyway, we're all here. You're all here. So this meeting will come to order, and will the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Shank? Vice Chair Richards?
Here.
Mr. Umber?
Here.
Mr. Hartnett?
Here.
Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Chairman Richard?
Here. Mr. Umberg, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I'll stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to public comment, and let me just take a moment here and go through the So we will take the speakers in the order in which they were received, but as is our practice, we will ask our elected officials to speak first. And this morning, once again, we are graced by the presence of Supervisor Henry Perea from Fresno. Supervisor, good to see you again.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you for
Let me make sure his mic is on. Okay, go ahead. Supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. I'm here in support of item 3, and once again, showing and underscoring Fresno's support and commitment to high-speed rail for California, and the leadership of our education team under Blake Council of our Workforce Investment Board will be making a presentation too. But we stand here today thanking you for considering adopting a hiring policy targeting California communities and disadvantaged workers. We believe with the time that it has taken to develop this policy, it will now ensure that returning veterans and individuals from economically disadvantaged areas will have an opportunity to be employed as this project rolls out over the next few years. I think the muster and the strength of this policy is that it falls within the constraints of state and federal laws to ensure that California communities, small businesses, and residents benefit as fully as possible during the construction of the high-speed rail project in California. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration of this policy, and we stand here in support of it.
Thank you, Supervisor. Okay, next is Diana Lacombe. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Richard, members of the board. First, I would like to thank Chairman Richard for attending our business conference in San Francisco yesterday and for spending that extra time with some of our small businesses. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Tom Falence and Robert Padilla and the Northern California director. I don't have his name.
Ben Traposis.
Thank you all for attending. Second, I'd like to tell you that we're completely in favor of your community benefits policy, and we hope that you can start implementing some areas so that especially the youth can be trained to be able to get into some of those construction jobs when construction starts next year. So this is excellent. Thank you. And lastly, I'm just giving you a copy of the Federal Rail Administration's email to us. They couldn't be there yesterday. We had some plaques for them, but they did send us a message. And it's just a very, very nice message, and it talks about the responsibility that FRA has and the California High-Speed Rail and so on. So, and that's it for me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to your conference yesterday. It was a very important meeting. Appreciate it. Next is Baldwin Moy, followed by Marvin Dean.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Baldwin Moy, California Rural Legal Assistance. We're also in support of item 3. we're actually really elated that it's up for consideration, and certainly hats off to the Fresno crew for its leadership and persistence in this matter. I think this kind of a policy is one that's going to really rally the Central Valley, both supporters, those who are standing on the sidelines, and those who are even opponents as they begin to see the fruits of this project take hold. Having said that, we like to see really robust participation, equitable participation in terms of the jobs, both in terms of the highly skilled, the lesser skilled, and also those who are hard to employ. And we would ask that some of the programs that would be considered include some set aside for pre-apprenticeship programs. I certainly have mentioned this in the past. Secondly, this policy without monitoring compliance would not work, and that I think that both the board, the authority, and the community have a vested interest in accountability, that this policy gets carried out and that the goals are attained. Lastly, I know that there's been some discussion at a statewide level that there be some kind of a community council. We would urge that the establishment of the Central Valley Advisory Committee along the lines of small business enterprises, that there be one that's comprised of Valley elected officials, job developers, and community advocates as well. Once again, we thank you for the opportunity to comment on this, and we also welcome a chance to work with staff to kind of develop the programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moy. Next will be Marvin Dean, followed by Robert Allen.
I want to say, first of all, again, I want to thank the board. This just shows another step in the right direction, that you're concerned about everybody being included in this process. If you support this position, item 3 this morning. I want to also thank Supervisor Pereira and his team out of Fresno for bringing this into the Valley, because this is badly needed. This is something that a lot of us, I'm from Bakersfield, we're going to be looking at duplicating some of the work that the supervisors are doing in Bakersfield. I'm already starting to put together a cross-section of the unions, the non-union, the city, the county, the Kern COG, the Cal State Bakersfield, so that we can start putting together this coalition to get ready, so when this project comes into Bakersfield, it'll be a consistent project for the Central Valley to make sure our people are ready. I also think that this goes in conjunction with the ERI process, where many of us publicly commented about environmental justice community as a part of the mitigation process, that people be given an opportunity to be able to be employed in these low-income neighborhoods. And I think this sets right in, fills that, the sense of that requirement. And I would also say that part of it, we should be looking at a job readiness program to get some of these people that don't have the skills to go into the apprenticeships right now, but get them job ready to be passed on to these apprenticeship programs. And then lastly, I would just say that this process ought to be including union shops and merit shops. I know that's an issue that's going to come before us, and I think everybody should be included. I'm out of the trade unions. I know the benefits of a union, but whether you belong to a union or not should not be a requirement whether you work on this project. And I think that should be open for everybody. But I know the benefit of the unions and their apprenticeship program. So I'll be talking more about it later, and want to be working with Henry and his group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Next is a friend of mine, former BART director, Robert Allen. Mr. Allen, good morning.
Thank you. Blended rail is fraught with peril. There are too many pedestrians and vehicles that have access to the Caltrain trackway. It's much better to run high-speed rail in the East Bay along the route that the Amtrak Coast Starlight Daylight runs. The Mulford line from Santa Clara to Oakland, with a good BART interchange where BART crosses over the UP. That would provide for good rail transit between the entire Bay Area and Sacramento, also between coming up the peninsula. I strongly urge that you do away with the concept of blended rail on Caltrain. Ultimately, Caltrain should be converted to BART between Millbrae and Santa Clara. It could very well be Muni between San Francisco and the airport. I would also urge that high-speed rail include a station at Santa Clara, which is right beside the busy Meta International Airport serving San Jose. I would urge you to take these things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Next is Dan Dolan, followed by Eric Kristen. Morning, Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Chairman Richard and the board. It's a privilege to get to speak to you again. I wanted to, first of all, say seasoned greetings to all of you and your families. And it's been a very good year for the authority. They got the state funding, approximately $2.9 billion, June 6, 2012, and then you also got your ARA federal monies of $3.3 billion. So it's been a good year for the authority. But I'm urging you and asking that there be some compassion and caring about the small business community as you reflect and the deciding committee on HSR 11-02 dealing with right-of-way acquisition and appraisals, that besides Bender Rosenthal, a woman-owned business in Sacramento, and Associated Right-of-Way Services, small business out of Pleasant Hill and Sacramento, will you please consider those small businesses that have submitted RFPs by November 15th and open the gate and be inclusive of them rather than just fall back and pick the people that you've used before. Otherwise, it will appear to be a misdirection, and 18 months encouraging the community to apply for a $34 million RFP that really isn't there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Next is Eric Kristen.
I think he stepped out, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
There he is.
Okay. Morning, sir.
Good morning. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. I brought some guests. They are my children who are homeschooled and have decided to see democracy in action for themselves. My wife, who's an Air Force pilot, unfortunately had to be gone today, so Dad gets to bring them down and see democracy in action. Thank you for your time. My name is Eric Kristen. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Fair Employment and Construction. And we're here today to speak to you, and if I'm being presumptuous with regards to how I'm viewing the Community Benefit Agreement, excuse me, I'll be happy to be wrong on this issue. Unfortunately, what we've seen in the past is a CBA, or Community Benefit Agreement. Future speaker right there is unfortunately just an acronym or a euphemism for what's known as a project labor agreement. You are meeting in a room and in a building that was built, a highly complex project that was built without a project labor agreement. Perhaps you flew into Sacramento International Airport into a $1 billion renovation that's happening there, a highly complex project wasn't built and isn't built with a project labor agreement. This is affecting a region of the state, one of whom cities, Fresno, passed the first project labor agreement ban back in 2000, of which Mr. Perea was actually the deciding vote, and there have since been 10 other PLA bans put into effect in California, including in June when the 10th largest city in America, San Diego, voted 58% to ban project labor agreements. Again, we view a CBA as nothing more than a PLA. I will be happy to be surprised if I'm wrong. Unfortunately, if the agreement contains the following, it will in fact be our worst.
They're fine. Don't worry about them. They're fine.
He's ready to speak right after me. He's going to give you the lowdown on this. That's right. A CBA, for all intents and purposes, if it is in fact a PLA, will contain the following. All workers have to pay union dues. All workers have to pay union health, welfare, and pension plan funds. All workers have to be sent through a union hiring hall, and non-union apprentices aren't even allowed. According to the National Bureau of Labor Statistics, 84% of the construction workforce in California wakes up on a daily basis and chooses to work in a union-free environment. That's the reality of the state workforce here. If your goal is, as you say, to remove potential barriers to participation by small businesses than a PLA, if this is in fact really a PLA meant to succor big labor business interest, it's not going to help reduce this potential threat to getting these people employed. Please make this about all taxpayers, about all workers, and not just about big labor special interests. I understand they have a stake in this, but they're not the only they're not the people that represent the only workers in this state. So those 4 provisions, if they are in the CBA, they will be discriminatory and impossible for you to meet your local hiring goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I'm having a little trouble reading the writing on this next one, so I'm going to apologize. It's a person from ABC of California, Nicole, and I'm very sorry, ma'am. If I try it, I'm going to butcher it. So
I apologize. I have horrible handwriting. Nicole Gehring with Associated Builders of California. We're an association of merit shop contractors who do commercial, industrial, and public works construction. We also operate state-approved apprenticeship programs in several trades. So many apprentices out of the Fresno area, Fresno County. We spoke before you back in October. Our representative, Julie Broyles, and at that time she brought before you fair and open competition principles, which she requested to be included in the community benefits agreement. And we are here today to continue to ask you to work with us to include fair and open competition principles and language in the community benefits agreement that you will be passing today. We also have an invitation into your office as well to meet with Mr. Morales, and we are anxiously awaiting to get that meeting set up in early January to provide you with the language. And let me read that for you again. It was that that you would not have any language that requires that is a contractor, subcontractor, material supplier, or carrier engaged in the construction or maintenance of the project execute or otherwise become party to any project labor agreement, collective bargaining agreement, pre-hire agreement, or other agreement with employees, their representatives, or any other labor organization as a condition of bidding, negotiating, being awarded, or performing work. Over the past year, we've had many contractors go to many groups, meetings where to meet with the prime contractors, and they've always been asking them, are you union? Would you be willing to sign a union agreement? And then there's been a questionnaire that's been sent out by the prime contractors as well. We believe that this project needs to be awarded because of the taxpayers who are paying for it. It needs to go under fair and open competition. So thank you for your consideration of my request.
Thank you, Ms. Gehring. And I think it's probably my eyesight more than your handwriting, so I apologize for that. The final speaker card I have is from Richard Markison. I don't have any other speaker cards beyond that.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Richard Markison. I represent 3 specialty contractor groups who have similar concerns to Nicole and to Eric. I represent electrical contractors, plumbing, heating, cooling, and HVAC. While the specifics of the community benefits agreement obviously can't be known, we would also encourage the board to adopt a policy for fair and open competition for the work that will be performed. We note many of the goals, very laudable goals in the policy, are covered by existing state and federal requirements for DBE participation, for apprenticeship utilization, for payment of prevailing wages. We have also seen in California that CBAs frequently become a vehicle to achieve other goals beyond those very laudable ones that are outlined in the policy. We would encourage, although the policy is not clear what happens after Mr. Morales negotiates the CBA with the interested parties, we would hope that that complete policy comes back to this board for ratification as opposed to simply being implemented with his signature. We think it's an important policy decision, and we think it's very important to the transparency of this project that it comes back and is considered by the entire board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Markison. Okay, going once. All right, with that, I think we conclude our, yes, Frank, I'm looking at you. I just want to make sure that we're, okay, we're good. All right. That will close the public comment period. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next agenda items, I do want to recognize that we have a former member of this body who is visiting us today, Robert Balganorth, until recently a member of the High Speed Rail Authority. Bob, it's good to see you. We miss you up here. And also he's sitting next to his successor as the head of the statewide building trades, Robbie Hunter. So welcome to Northern California, Mr. Hunter. Next item is an update on the revised Memorandum of Understanding with Caltrain, which is part of our revised business plan. Mr. Traposis, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be part of the high-speed rail team. And it dawned on me this morning as I was coming to the meeting that I'm especially happy that my presentation won't be subject to the 2-minute rule as all my previous presentations before the authority had been. So
we can change that if you'd like.
Yeah, you can. I'd probably do better if you put it up there. Thank you. I don't want you to initiate the rule on my behalf. Thank you. As you're aware, the Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board and the Authority are in a partnership to share the Peninsula Rail Corridor and to provide commuter and high-speed rail services. The revised 2012 business plan has clearly established this change of direction for the high-speed rail project with the development of the blended system. As a result, the existing agreements with the JPB, the 2004 Memorandum of Understanding, and the 2009 Agreement and Amendment are outdated. A new, updated agreement is needed to reflect current policies defined in the revised business plan, the 2012 9-party funding MOU, and the high-speed rail early investment strategy for a blended system in the Peninsula Corridor. The updated agreement will define a new partnership for planning, environmental review, design, and construction of the blended system. The principles being considered for inclusion in the updated agreement include the following: what the blended system will do, including utilization of existing tracks and right-of-way, remaining within the existing JPB rights-of-way, and accommodating future high-speed train service. The new agreement will outline the JPB's responsibilities, including implementation of early investment projects defined in the 9-party MOU, an update of the Electrification environmental document, which was originally completed in 2009, and the JPB will also lead and complete the implementation of an advanced signal system expected to be completed by 2015. The authority's responsibilities outlined in the new agreement will include incorporating the early investment projects into the next update of our business plan and release of $706 million in Prop 1A funding for the early investment projects. The JPB and the authority will work together to develop an organizational framework to deliver the early investment projects and continue planning for the blended system. We will also continue the negotiated cost-sharing arrangement to administer and manage delivery of the investment projects. Our Chief Counsel, Tom Falens, has been working with Caltrain's lead counsel on the agreement to solidify these agreement points. Staff will be seeking input from the corridor, including the city-county partners, the 9-party MOU signatories, and other stakeholders regarding the update of the MOU. In addition, staff will be soliciting input from the Caltrain Modernization Program's local policymaker group, whose meeting is scheduled for December 20th, as well as from the next city-county stakeholder coordination meeting to be held on December 12th. Once stakeholder input has been received, staff expects to return to the board in February to request approval of the revised MOU. It's important to note that the Peninsula JPB is receiving a similar informational report at their board meeting this morning, and that the JPB is planning to request approval of the MOU in January. That's my update. I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions? Mr. Rossi.
As I look at the second page, or whatever, it's the back page, whatever you have there, and it says the following principles consistent with and blah, 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 blah. And then it says the blended system will, the JPB will, the California High-Speed Rail will, both JPB and California High-Speed Rail will. What does that mean? I mean, because the way it reads is we will do these things. But what I understand this to be is that we're going to look at these and decide whether or not to do these things.
I may defer to Mr. Falens on this, but the particular language is being
negotiated as part of the ultimate agreement, which we'll bring back for adoption. The expectation is that we're negotiating with the JPB to ensure that these activities are completed. Will may be a little strong language at this point, but I
was just trying to understand.
No, I think it is. Well, yeah, Mr. Morales.
If I could.
Microphone.
Sorry, Tom.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Yes. I think the will is reflective of the point of this new MOU is to really make sure that the actions we and Caltrain are taking jointly are consistent with the business plan and consistent with the appropriation. The legislature in adopting SB 1029 was very clear about what the program they were funding is. So the MOU and the reason it's phrased, the discussion points are phrased, and it will be reflected in the actual document that comes to the board, is to ensure that the actions we're taking are in fact consistent with the funding that we have been provided and the direction that the board has provided in adopting the plan. So it really is intended to create a very clear path, and that's why I think the will word is in there. We do have a very specific project that we are now moving forward with.
Right. So that would mean that if this document will do all of these things.
Well, the document commits the organizations to do these things.
Well, but the document will commit the organization to do these things. Then if it does that, why does it come back for approval?
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, given what I was just told, is that this is being structured in a way to comply with the law. If that is the case, what's it coming back here for approval for? Then I assume it's done.
Well, no. The reason is there's an existing memorandum of understanding with Caltrain.
Oh, and it may have to be restructured.
Which is being restructured, right. So this is replacing the existing MOU, right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, because there's the existing MOU, in effect, is in conflict with the new direction that's being taken. And so this will replace that, supersede it.
And then I would only suggest, knowing how we move with alacrity here, that we put the year in here for January and February.
Yeah, that was good. I was going to say, you did bring loan restructurings back to the credit committee, right? Yeah,
yes,
okay.
we did.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hartnett, and then Mr. Umber.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having been involved in the prior two MOUs, I was on the Caltrain board, I can tell you this, a revised MOU would be a very significant departure from the prior ones. And I think it's important not only that from our perspective that we move forward in compliance with the principles of our business plan and the legal requirements of our budgetary authorization, but the MOU also then would bind Caltrain in a manner in which they are not currently bound. And so it's important that we get their signature on an MOU that reflects what it is that's mutually agreed, but also which incorporates that which we're otherwise going to be required to do anyway.
Right, because certain new members of the Board of Supervisors of Santa Clara County, for example, might have different views.
Possibly.
Mr. Umber.
Just a quick question. So as I understand it, there'll be a new MOU negotiated. That MOU will come back to the board for approval or whatever action the board takes. Then with respect to the $705 million, the MOU will provide, I assume, certain conditions as to the release of that $705 million. Is there a legal requirement that irrespective of the agreement, that release of the $705 million come back to the board independent of the MOU?
Yeah, I can speak to that.
Mike.
It has to be turned over. Okay. The state funding for the corridor electrification project comes from several different pots of funds. Some of it is from the connectivity money, which goes through the California Transportation Commission, and other of it is through the bookend funding as it was appropriated. There are two different processes set up to release that money. The commitment the authority would be making is to work on behalf of the state to ensure that those do happen. even though the authority doesn't control the release of the connectivity funds. There is a process required under SB 1029, some requirements that have to be satisfied before the funds can be released, and so that will come back to the board to ensure that to adopt a template or a program to ensure that the conditions are established and met to release the money ultimately. Independent of the MOU. In essence, the MOU kind of sets up that process.
Okay. That actually leads to my question, but I just wanted to make sure my colleagues had all had an opportunity first. Just picking up where our CEO just left off, the funding for the Caltrain modernization is from a combination of pots. And so with respect to the connectivity money, that has its own approval process through the California Transportation Commission, so we understand that. But an essential element of this are the funds that we committed from Prop 1A through this MOU. But those funds have to be matched.
Right.
And the match, one of the things that we appreciated very much was that MTC, in helping to structure this MOU, gave us a very specific list of pots of money from their bridge tolls, regional measure 1, et cetera, that they would use to match these dollars. So my question is, because that's outside of the MOU, because that's really an MTC process, how do we guarantee that dollars that we would release that go to Caltrain modernization under the MOU that come from our Prop 1A funds are being in lockstep matched, and that the money is actually flowing from the MTC accounts?
Two things, then I'd ask either Ben or Tom to jump in. And knowing the board's affinity for entering MOUs, there's another MOU that drives part of that, which is the Memorandum of Understanding of the MTC put together to create that funding structure. This revised MOU will connect with that one.
Okay.
So it will reflect it. So that's one mechanism. The other is, again, we are required under SB 1029 to establish a process to ensure that all conditions are being met before any funding is released. So there's a second step, which Mr. Umber just was asking about, that will ensure that the authority, the board, knows that those funds are being provided as required before it then signs off on releasing the bond proceeds to the state match.
And the reason I think this is important is because we've got this agreement in Northern California, we've got the agreement in Southern California. In Northern California, we have a very specifically identified project, and we have, in advance, a priori, very specifically identified sources for the matching funds. In Southern California, we're starting a process with people down there where we have a list of candidate projects, we don't have specific projects, we don't know yet whether or not they comply with Prop 1A, we don't know where the matching funds are coming from, and I just want to make sure we get off on the right foot in terms of setting a precedent that we want this stuff to proceed with specificity, because we know that there'll be tremendous political pressure on us to release the Prop 1A funds and just start funding some of those projects in Southern California. And I think it's really important that because we've got what I think is a great structure here in Northern California, that we use that to establish a set of protocols and precedents so that we have something to fall back on when we get into the inevitable negotiations down south. So,
Mr. Chair, forgive me, the 9-party MOU that I referred to in my comments is the MTC MOU, and we absolutely will ensure that they're consistent and working together to deliver exactly what you're suggesting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. That's good. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Trebosis.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so it's bad enough that because I told my eye doctor that I did not need progressive lenses, that I skipped over the agenda item for adopting our minutes from the other meeting. But worse yet was that I had to be called out on that by Mr. Rossi. So we'll go back to item 1, approval of the minutes from the October 2012 meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rossi, seconded by Mr. Hartnett. Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Umber?
Yes.
Mr. Hartnett?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rossi, for catching that. We'll move on to item 3, which is the proposal to adopt a policy to promote enhanced community benefits during the construction of the high-speed rail system. Mr. Morales, how do you want to proceed?
Sure. Robert Dia will present in detail, but let me just a few comments in starting. I want to make clear this policy is clearly reflective of direction that this board has made very clear in terms of its intentions. It does not, in and of itself, adopt any specific program or implement it. That it sets the policy direction then that we will implement going forward through various means. It sets a very clear direction that while the long-term benefits of adopting a high-speed rail program to the state's economy are clear and understood and supported by the board also wants to ensure that communities, the communities in particular where the program is going, where the project is going, the local communities, businesses, and individuals benefit during the construction of the project to the extent possible. It's consistent in many ways with legislation sponsored by Assemblymember Perea and signed by the governor, the Buy California legislation, which similarly wants to ensure that California benefits as much as possible in the development and purchase of equipment as we go forward. The implementation of this policy, if adopted, would occur through various means, working with stakeholders, working with our contractors, and being creative and flexible, working within the constraints of federal and state law, which we have to be mindful of. There are specific restrictions on what can be done as far as local benefits, so we will be mindful of that as we go forward. But the policy really, again, just sets the direction for us to implement as we go forward. And it's been worked on with a number of different stakeholders. And Robert, could you make the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chairman Richard, members of the board. My name is Robert Padilla, the Small Business Advocate for the High-Speed Rail Authority. Our topic on the agenda today, clearly want to identify certainly something you and many of the attendees today are aware of. The building of the state's highway rail system allows us a tremendous opportunity to contribute to the economic viability that we know in the Central Valley, and I think to address some of the devastation of high unemployment and poverty in the area. I do want to draw your attention to the American Communities Survey. Based on the survey in 2011, approximately 15.9% of the U.S. population had income below the poverty level. There was a follow-up national report that stated the city of Fresno and the city of Bakersfield rank in the top 5 cities in the country with very high poverty levels. Again, the authority, we're asking a policy objective that is designed to promote and advance construction, employment, and training opportunities for individuals whose primary place of residence is within an economic disadvantaged area or an extremely economically disadvantaged area in the United States, or a disadvantaged worker, which includes something very particular of interest to us, of course, our veterans returning in the military. As I've stated before in another presentation, California receives more than 300,000 veterans from military service on an annual basis. This policy shall further serve to enhance the small business participation reflective of the diversity of California, including disadvantaged business enterprise, disabled business enterprise, and microbusiness, and those certified by the state of California with the Department of General Services. The community benefits policy includes a national targeted workers program initiative. This targeted hiring is a minimum of 30% of all hours of project work shall be performed by a national targeted worker. A minimum of 10% within that national targeted worker hours shall be performed by a disadvantaged worker. The applicability defines the disadvantaged worker as, and there's a list of 9 criterion, certainly those that include those that are homeless, custodial single parent, receiving public assistance, lacking a GED or high school diploma, some of those unfortunately having a criminal record or other involvement with the criminal system, suffering from chronic unemployment and emancipation from foster care service, being a veteran, and of course being an apprentice with less than 15% of required graduating apprenticeship hours in a program. The policy of the board, again, is designed to ensure that long-term benefits of the California high-speed rail system are reinvested in our communities in ways that viably build and strengthen our economy and the surrounding communities. The policy and program initiative applies to, in our intent, construction package number 1 through construction package number 5. These are the construction contracts awarded by the authority. And for your consideration, the policy will include compliance with, the authority shall include compliance with this policy and program initiative as materially termed in all of the authority, material term and applicable authority construction contracts. We think the keys to success is partnering with our design builders and the respective contributor unions and non-unions, our resource partners, and to ensure the goals and objectives of this policy are met. Therefore, the staff recommended action for the board consideration today is number 1, adopt the community policy, the community benefits policy, authorize the chief executive officer to sign the CBP resolution HSRA 12-30 and to proceed with developing and implementing a community benefits agreement. Again, for your consideration, I will now read that policy.
Mr. Padilla, I think we have it in our board packages, and I believe that every one of the members has read this, so I think we can forego that step. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add in making your recommendation to us?
The second would be the resolution, approval of the community benefits policy resolution.
Right. And we have that before us as well. So.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Questions from members? Mr. Hartnett.
What will be the process of monitoring the success of this?
A primary means, if not the primary means of implementing this, will ultimately be through the contracts, and starting with the large design-build contracts. Contractors will understand what the requirements are of them. Their proposals, one of the evaluation elements of their proposals will be their plan for complying with this program, so it will actually be built into the selection of a contractor team. And then there will be requirements for regular, and it typically would be quarterly, reporting of their numbers and their achievement against the goals that they have set in their program. So we will have on a quarterly basis reporting in from the contractors on their success in meeting the goals.
To me, it's important that there be a mechanism, either through a board subcommittee or the board itself, being apprised of this and being able to have input if we aren't pleased.
I agree with that, and actually, as you were writing that, I was trying to pen a proposed amendment to the resolution that would accomplish that. But
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, you don't need a proposed resolution. You don't need to amend the resolution because all of that will be reported as required to the audit committee, and we will review it and report to the board.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, I was basically going to have something that the CEO
I'm just saying it already exists.
Just through the normal reporting
it already exists, yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know.
I meant to add also...
you did agree that it already exists, that you're going to be reporting to the audit committee?
Yes, I certainly agree with
Okay,
that.
I thought you might start with that. Okay.
Thank you. As I said, there'll be the requirements will be detailed in the contracts. There will also be penalties for non-compliance in the contract, based on that reporting. I wanted to make sure that was known.
Okay. Vice Chair Richards.
I think that the comments clearly underlie the importance that we place on this policy and its implementation and reporting. And so I appreciate those colleagues, and I support them. I would also congratulate the staff and applaud them, along with the people sitting out here today, including the leadership from Fresno County and Supervisor Perea, and from the City of Fresno, which I think both deserve acknowledgement. The fact being that we're starting this project in the Central Valley in an area where we've got the highest unemployment, chronic unemployment in the state of California. And this policy will not only benefit the Central Valley, but will benefit the state of California, and I think clearly speaks to the intent of the major portion of our funding with the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So I thank you all. I strongly urge that we monitor this very carefully, report it to Audit and Finance, and as we all know, Director Rossi will be reporting it back to us regularly, with my prodding in this instance.
Any other questions on this? Then I'd just like to make the following comments. First, I appreciate my colleagues' recognition of the work of our staff and also the community leaders who brought this about. This was actually not an easy thing to do, because the policy needs to conform to limitations under federal law, and it appears that that's been accomplished with great success, and that took some work. So congratulations to everybody who worked on that. The second thing is that I appreciate my colleagues raising the issue of monitoring. I think it's all of us instinctively feel that it's very important. My former colleague on the BART board, Michael Bernick, who also served as the head of the Department of Employment Development, made the point to me that it's very difficult at the end of the day to really estimate what the impact is in advance, that people make guesses, but that most of those projections are subject to wide variability. But he emphasized that it's very, very important that we gather data on the success and efficacy of this project as we go forward. So I certainly want to reinforce that. And then finally, I'd like to just make one other comment. I'm always careful about responding to comments that were made during public session, because I never in any way want to chill or discourage people from expressing their views to the board. But we had three people this morning, Mr. Kristen, Ms. Gehring, and Mr. Markuson, raised the issue of project labor agreements. And I just want to make it clear on the record that while no decision's been made in terms of how this is going to be structured, yesterday at the meeting that I attended of the minority contracting community, there was very, very strong sentiment that project labor agreement is the mechanism by which they become assured that they are able to participate through these major contracts that we're about to let. So sometimes we have to balance among competing policy imperatives. My experience with project labor agreements is that they can increase the efficiency of project delivery and reduce the number of conflicts that occur on projects, and that they can be very, very positive, and that this other aspect, that they provide the avenue for participation by the minority contracting community, is also important. So I understand the comments that were made with respect to views of justice and fairness. This board, when this policy is ultimately developed through our staff, needs to balance all those pieces. So I wanted to make sure that that was expressed as well. So with that, we have before us the recommendation to move forward with this community benefits policy and the associated resolution.
I move the policy and the resolution.
All right.
Second.
It was moved, actually, if it's all right, I'd like the minutes to show that it was moved by Vice Chair Richards and seconded by Mr. Hartnett in recognition of the leadership of that member of our board. But if you're amenable, Mr. Hartnett.
That's what I thought the record reflected.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Moved by Vice Chair Richards, seconded by Director Hartnett. Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Umber?
Aye.
Mr. Hartnett?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Chairman Richard?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Thank you, Mr. Morales, Mr. Falens, and all the people who worked on this. Thank you. I think this is a nice step for this board. Okay, with that, we have no, let me double check and make sure we have no other agenda items. Mr. Morales, is any other issue you wish to raise before we go into closed session?
I guess just the last thing, I'd like to make an introduction
Yes.
to the board. We have some, as you know, we continue to, under the direction of the board, at the mandate of the board, grow the competency of our staff and bring on additional people. Two, I think, here. I don't want to miss anyone. Two people I'd like to just introduce. First, Jenny Baldini, who has joined us. And then secondly, our Chief Program Manager, Frank Baca, who has just joined us from Amtrak, where he was the Chief Engineer for Amtrak nationally. I think his joining us really underscores the significance of our program and what it means to the state and the country. And we're really very pleased to have him on board.
Was Ben introduced at a previous meeting?
I don't know if Ben was. Yes, no. This was Ben's first appearance before. Yes, so Ben Trapos, Northern California Director.
Well, let me just say very quickly that first of all, welcome to these new members of the high-speed rail executive team. And I think I speak for all my colleagues in expressing appreciation to you, Jeff, for the way you have moved with great alacrity to fill out the management ranks of this organization. Is very, very important to our credibility as we move into the construction phase, that we have an organization that is capable of delivering this project. And certainly looking at the resumes of the people that you've attracted to come here, I just want to recognize excellent leadership on your part in putting together a very strong team. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd say they're attracted by, and I think in Frank's case, by the challenge of the project and the significance of it. And we're pleased.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're nothing if not challenged. All right, with that, the board will now enter into a closed session pertaining to litigation. We'll report back at the end of that. Thank you all.
You can't guarantee much.
Meeting will be back in order. At the conclusion of the closed session, there is nothing to report. The meeting of the High Speed Rail Authority is now adjourned.